Hey, good morning again, Bob Trade Genius, still 27th of May. Talk about something a little bit different today. Pretty interesting stuff. And I read about this about about 2 years ago, and actually watched a seminar on this. I live in Southern California, so it's more than a passing interest to me. And there is a really interesting things happening to the geology in California. So, a little quick background. I think you'll find this fascinating as well. Is that the prevailing the prevailing view here is that here's the Gulf of California, and then the fault line starts to trace here for San Andreas and pops out over here, comes out to this point here. There's a boatload of earthquakes that happen here all the time. There's like a where three boundaries kind of intersect, and then we go from this slip fault to a subduction fault here, and gets the geometry and the geology here get to be really complex. So, and what I think people don't realize too, there's a fault line here, okay, that runs San Jacinto Fault, and then there's another fault line that runs right pretty much behind my house, that actually is capable of producing 7.0 earthquakes. That's I live near San Juan Capistrano, the Swallows of San Juan. I live on the bluff above it towards the ocean. And right below me, I live maybe 3 miles from the mission, is that it knocked the mission down in the late 1500s. So it's pretty capable of moving. And these are all slip faults. And whenever you see a valley in California, that's a long valley, it's typically a fault in there somewhere. So, and then there's one right off the coast called the Newport Inglewood Fault. So all these faults are potentially devastating. And that's the one that goes down to San Diego called the Rose Canyon Fault, where we also had an 8.0 earthquake. So, but what's interesting that happened though in the, when did I move here? I moved in the 1990 out here, and in 92, I think it was, we had an earthquake in a really weird place, and it was a big earthquake. It was called the Landers earthquake, and it was like located right here. And I found that odd. And then so I started to look, why the heck would it be there? There was no fault for anybody to look at. And then as I was as I was studying it, I determined that there was a big earthquake in Lone Pine, and there was other earthquakes that were in this area too. And I'm like, I wonder if there's a hidden fault in here somewhere. Well, this guy here, Jim Faulds, had been studying this for 20 years, and so he actually has determined that there's a trace out there called the Walker Lane breakout. And what's interesting here, if you see Nevada, Nevada has these all these faults in here because Nevada's stretching out, okay, and California's pivoting, and so what's likely to happen here is as it pivots, depending on who's going to get the energy, is that the Newport Inglewood may break, the San Jacinto fault may break, the fault that the Elsinore fault may break, and then and the Andreas fault may break, and we may just have a series of islands running north. But the pivot may change completely, and that's what this is, guys. His theory is that the this Gulf can just keep driving up here. And you got to realize this is like sea level all in through here. It wouldn't take much to start extending this coastline up. In fact, Palm Springs is under sea level, and so all the way, almost all the way to the bottom of the grade coming out of the Banning Pass is below sea level. And so this whole thing may just start to pivot out. And that's his conjecture, is that we're going to start seeing the activity and the energy shift from here to here. And what really caught a lot of people's attention when Parkfield, which was a really, really normal 6.0 earthquake, almost you could almost set your calendar to it, stopped functioning as planned. And this is the most researched fault, an earthquake in the world, because it's been so consistent and it's not firing as normal. And that means the energy is leaving the San Andreas and going somewhere else. And you see this fault line right here. This is what's jamming the San Andreas up. There was a shift, like Santa Barbara goes out this way, and this goes into here, and so this might be stopping the San Andreas, and this thing's pushing up. So now people are starting to look at is that we're starting to look to see if there's going to be more earthquakes along here. This is hugely volcanic in here. We're getting huge amounts of what they call microquakes up by Mammoth Mountain. There's another cluster of volcanic activity below Lone Pine area and Bishop. And then now they're looking at Reno. And what they're learning here is that above Reno, because they have this technology called LIDAR, they're able to start seeing the traces underneath the forest and like, whoa, things have happened. So now they're thinking this is going to come up like this, bend, and likely it'll come underneath these volcanic chains here where the subduction is and come out this way versus come out this way. Now the good news is that this is 80 million years away, so real estate speculators will probably have to wait a little bit to catch your new beach property. But really interesting stuff. And we're wondering why. I mean, I'm here almost 30 years that we've had very, very few earthquakes. And we used to get them in regularities, threes and fours and fives and sixes, and nada, nothing. I mean, it went dead quiet. And so the activity is shifting. And now they're trying to determine, when this is going to really start to break out. So, and it got the zeitgeist now. So I'm going to show you an article here, and this will prompt me to do the video because this popped up unwired, and I'll put the link in. It's a fascinating article, but I thought it was so cool because I read about this a couple years ago. I thought about it about a decade ago, and it's coming to pass. Just some really interesting things in the world. So anyway, I hope you find it as interesting as I do. It's really interesting stuff. And then the volcanoes in Indonesia, I'll talk about those next. So, may we live in interesting times. Have a good one. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.